Welcome back home. You have finished your mission experience and are going through a process that's actually called re-entry. So today, I want to guide you through this re-entry process and invite you to continue your mission experience by living your life as a missionary disciple. So imagine the experience of an astronaut coming back to Earth from a space expedition. Imagine the immense shock that they will go through as they touch down back into normality. Whilst it might not seem as significant, you too will experience such a shock as you enter back into your life here at home. In my experience of mission, there's really 4 things that I will experience when I go through this re-entry process. As we go through each of these 4 stages, see if any of them are resonating with you and how you are feeling right now. The first is that you might experience a stage of exhaustion. You'll be tired emotionally and physically. Mission isolates you, challenges you to depend on your mission team and your faith to get through the mission, and often pushes you to the edge of your own limits. Re-entry means entering back into the normality of life. And as the pace of life seems to slow down, it's normal for you to feel exhausted. What can you do? Rest and recover. Allow your mind and your body to process what is actually experienced. And above all, pray about your experiences to see how God has used you to fulfill His mission. The second one, depression. As you rest and you recover, your exhaustion can turn into depression. And depression stems almost entirely from what you have experienced on your mission. Whether you encounter joy amidst poverty, peace amidst chaos, there will be moments that will continue to resonate with you. No matter how much you try and share with those at home, they just won't be able to understand what you experienced on mission. They just don't get it. This might lead to a strong desire to return to mission with an alternate prospect of returning to a normal life depressing. Just remember that while life eventually does go back to normal, you aren't called to go back to normal. In fact, God will continue to call you on mission long after you return home from your short-term mission experience. The third one is frustration. As you process all that you have experienced, you may come to appreciate how much your eyes have been opened to the other. You will hopefully change for the better. But the problem is, it seems like you will be the only one who has this newfound insight into the world. This is what can cause you frustration. Remember, you can't give what you don't have, and you've received an incredible grace to see the world in a new way. Now it's up to you to give this gift by inviting others to share in your new perspective. Finally, the fourth one is resolution. Life will eventually settle down. And this is what I call resolution. During this final stage, you'll be able to resolve the tension that you have experienced throughout this re-entry process. How do you do this? One of 2 ways. Firstly, you can just return to normal, that normal pre-mission version of yourself, resuming your normal life. Secondly, you can implement a change to become a missionary disciple. The entire church is called to become missionary disciples. All baptized, regardless of the position in the church or theological understanding of the faith, are agents of evangelization. As we know, the new evangelization calls for personal involvement on behalf of all Christians, all faithful, everyone, everywhere, all the time. This means that you are not merely called to be actively engaged in evangelization for just a few short weeks on your mission experience, but indeed anyone who has experienced the love of God is called to proclaim that love. It's with this foundation that Pope Francis challenges us in Evangelii Gaudium that every Christian is a missionary to the extent that he or she has encountered the love of God in Christ Jesus. We no longer say that we are disciples and missionaries, but rather we are always missionary disciples. We are no longer disciples or missionaries, but rather always missionary disciples. Are you convinced of this? If not, just look at the first disciples who, after encountering Him, went forth to boldly proclaim Him joyfully. As they say, we have found the Messiah. Or the Samaritan woman becoming a missionary immediately after speaking with Jesus, calling others to the faith because of her, because of the woman's testimony. And so too, St. Paul, after his encounter with Jesus Christ, immediately proclaimed Jesus. What are you waiting for? Not another mission experience. Your mission starts today. And there are three key elements to missionary discipleship. First is community. There is no such thing as a missionary disciple who walks in isolation. The church is a community of communities, of individual missionary disciples coming together, living out their discipleship in the sacramental and missionary community from which the mission flows. The church which goes forth is a community of missionary disciples who take the first step, who are disciples who are involved and supportive, who bear fruit and who rejoice. Do you actively live out your faith in community? If not, then make that the first change as you return home. A church that goes forth is a community of missionary disciples who continue to take that first step, who are involved in supporting, rejoicing in the work of grace amidst their lives. Knowing that God has taken the first initiative, loving us first, you can move boldly forward together, going out to others, starting in your own backyard, to seek those who have fallen away and welcome the outcast. That's the first one. The second one is an outward focus. Missionary disciples take the first step and are always focused outward. Jesus directly involved himself into the world, washing his disciples' feet as he entered into their brokenness. And you too are called to enter into the brokenness of those around you, being a witness of love, of mercy, of joy. So get involved by word and by deed and rejoice in the fruit that is brought before you. Now the third and the final thing is that about fruit. So Pope Francis tells us an evangelizing community is always concerned with fruit because the Lord wants her to be fruitful. This fruit won't appear overnight, but it's a lifelong mission marked with patience. When lived out in faith, the fruit will always come. The sower, when he sows the seed sprouting among the grain, does not grumble and overreact. Rather, he finds a way to let the word take flesh in a particular situation and bear fruit of new life, regardless of any imperfection. A missionary disciple also sees the fruit in their own lives, especially a life lived with joy. Joy originates with the beauty of the liturgy, which is both a celebration of the task of evangelization and the source of her renewal. It is the joy of pointing to a beautiful horizon or inviting others to a delicious banquet. That is how we need to approach a life as a missionary disciple. So you have a missionary mandate, but how do you sustain a life lived in fulfillment of this mandate? It is through spiritual disciplines that lead to a missionary mindset. So what do these look like? First of all, you're called to regular communication with God. You're called to using your mouth. This is what we call prayer. But second of all, it's not just a one-way monologue, it's a two-way dialogue. And you're called to listen to God, to discern where He is leading you. This is through the scriptures. Thirdly, you're called to actually meet Christ. This is the beauty of the Eucharist. And in that meeting, you're actually called to not just be there and be present, but to allow Christ into your brokenness and into your humanity. It's where the beautiful gift of the sacrament of reconciliation comes in. Not only that, it's not done in isolation, but you're called to live the Christian faith in community. This is the church. And finally, you are called to develop a missionary mindset to serve those whom you meet. This is service. So I want to finish this series, this time we spent together, with a challenge to live your missionary mandate. As Pope Francis calls the church to realize, missionary outreach is paradigmatic for the church's missionary activity. With every Christian and every community discerning the path that the Lord points out, all of us are asked to obey His call to go forth from our own comfort zones to reach all the peripheries in need of the light of the gospel. You have this missionary mandate. You are called to go beyond your comfort zone to live it out in a permanent state of mission. So right now, I want you to take a few moments to finally reflect on the fellowship of the believers in Acts 2:42. This is what it looks like to live life as a missionary disciple, fulfilling the missionary mandate given to us by Christ. And as you reflect, I want to leave you with one final challenge. It's now your time to go and make disciples of all nations.